Welcome to another episode of the Wisco Fanatic Show, where we cover the Packers, Bucks, Brewers, and Badgers basketball and football teams from an optimistic and realistic perspective.
Alrighty, welcome to our 2026 Milwaukee Brewers season primer. We're very excited, not only just because we got a gigantic snowstorm over the last couple of days, but we're also looking forward now to Milwaukee Brewers season, which starts next Thursday. So that means that it is close to spring and summertime, is at least what we're hoping and telling ourselves, so that we can kind of focus on it being a little bit warmer out. But so much information. There's going to be so much good discussion between Jake and I over this primer. So we're very excited. We're getting ready to dive in, and we're going to start with departures and additions. All right, so starting with departures, just looking at it, as far as free agents go, Danny Jansen left. Jose Quintana is not back with the team. Reese Hoskins signed with the Minnesota Twins. Eric Fetty is not back with the Brewers. And then looking at trades, the Brewers are now without Isaac Collins, Nick Mears, Tobias Myers, and Freddie Peralta, who were traded to the Mets. Caleb Durbin, Andrew Monasterio, and I let some of the other fringe AAA guys left them off the list just because we're looking at the Brewers roster itself as far as departures go. Jake, is there anything on the departures that really stands out to you as like a, we need to replace that, or kind of glaring departures that leave the roster in a tough spot?
Leave the roster in a tough spot is a tough way to put it, but obviously from the human aspect, emotionally, I am going to miss Freddie. I've gained a lot of love for Freddie over the years. A lot of self-inflicted pain on my end, calling him the wrong name. Not on purpose. I'm just an idiot sometimes, and I mess up. So, but other than Freddie leaving, I mean, Caleb Durbin had a nice year for us. I think that production can be replaced. I know he was kind of becoming a fan favorite. Isaac Collins, kind of the same boat, just a fun guy to be around. He filled a big void for the Brewers last year, a record-setting year. So, but they have a lot of outfield depth. There's a guy that I guarantee we're going to mention tonight that both of us are big fans of. So, yeah, other than those three, there's not anything that I think is like dire need of replacement. I think the Brewers do a nice job of keeping multiple layers of depth at every position.
Yeah, I agree. And I would throw, you mentioned, losing the person of Freddie Peralta. I would throw Andrew Monasterio in there as well.
Yeah,
ever since he came up, like we talked about it, and we're like, hey, every single thing this guy does is with a smile on his face. Mm-hmm. There's never a time where he's not smiling, that he's not happy to be here. So we appreciated that about Andrew Monasterio, even though he was never going to be, like a plug and play everyday starter for the Brewers lineup. But his smile was infectious, and you could tell that he was just happy to be there. And that was something that was really good to be around for the other guys. So other than that, I mean, we'll talk about some of the bullpen stuff with trading Nick Mears and stuff. So we'll get into some of that as well. Like you said, Jose Quintana was kind of a depth piece. He was in and out of the roster last year a little bit with some injury stuff, but we can jump into the additions. So now, looking at free agency, the Brewers brought back Gary Sanchez. They brought in Akil Baddoo and Luis Rengifo kind of as some stopgaps, in my opinion. And then they also brought back Peter Strzelecki, who I was kind of a bummer that they traded him for Andrew Chafin, a guy that I was not super high on from the Diamondbacks. And they were able to get Peter Strzelecki back into the organization after having a couple down years, because other teams don't know how to make good pitchers like the Brewers do. So I'm very excited for Peter Strzelecki to be back in the organization. And then looking at trades, the Brewers got Angel Zerpa from the Royals, who is dominating in the World Baseball Classic. Will actually be going against Team USA tonight in the World Baseball Classic Championship. The Brewers got Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams for Tobias Myers and Freddie Peralta. And then they got Kyle Harrison, David Hamilton, and Shane Drohan for Durbin, Monasterio, Siegler, and that pick. So looking at the additions, is there somebody you're most excited for, or just glad to see that they're back?
I love that you mentioned that people don't know how to make pitching like the Brewers, because everything I've read on sport is I think I'm gonna butcher his name, but the Red Sox were trying to teach this guy a changeup, from what I read, and he comes in, and within a few weeks, the Brewers teach this guy a changeup, and now he has a dominant wipeout changeup, and I'm just like, that's got to be the funniest thing that I think I've read in the last like few months. It's just like the Red Sox are just like, yeah, we had this guy for an entire year, we couldn't teach him this, so if you can, good luck. And the Brewers just like, yeah, just do this, dude. And he just does
a changeup. Like, what's a changeup? We taught Freddie Peralta a changeup, and now he uses it all the time.
This is just what we do, man. This is just what we do. So
all right. So additions and departures, we ran through them. I mean, we got more segments. Let's jump into the state of the Brewers. So looking at the state of the Brew Crew, Jake, the first question that we kind of pose to ourselves is, are the Brewers contending? Are they retooling? Or are they threading the needle kind of in between? So give me your thoughts on the state of the Brewers.
Yeah. So right away we're starting our notes, we're starting our research, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, man, this question's kind of heavy, bro. Like, there's multiple layers to this question. You think of it in a lot of ways. So I wrote down, yes, I believe the Brewers are contenders. There's not many teams in Major League Baseball that return 70% of a 97-win team from the season before that wouldn't be considered contenders. Being a small market team, being able to maintain a contender, you have to retool with trades, which the Brewers have been, layers are like onions. Onions have layers. I agree. Jesus Christ, dude. But being able to retool with trades is something that the Brewers have really become very good at, and they've now multiple times, retooling, gave themselves the number one farm system in baseball. So, I mean, that's just amazing to me. Obviously, getting some of these better players from Venezuela, talking about a Jackson Churio, getting a guy, Jesus Mate, being able to develop other young prospects like that, and drafting a guy like a Cooper Pratt. That's a guy that will probably get brought up later in this show as well. Being able to do that and make good trades and get other teams good prospects is just impressive, in my opinion. And then when you're in a conference with the Dodgers, the Mets, the Padres, the Cubs, those are all big market teams that aren't afraid to spend some cash. I think that it's fair to say that you're always kind of threading the needle as a small market team like the Brewers. So that's why I said, man, when I was reading this, I was like, we're kind of all of those things, to be completely honest with you. But the Brewers are good at all three of those things, and it's a reason for their consistent success over the last, I would say, 8 years.
Yeah, 7, 8.
Yeah.
So I did my best to try to change this into basically one word, the way that I'm looking at it, and a word that I think Pat Murphy would appreciate me using is, I think that the Brewers are competing.
Oh, okay.
So the way that I'm kind of seeing this season, and the spending would show it. I mean, you look at the Dodgers, you look at the Mets, these teams are spending like crazy, in my mind, trying to buy a championship before the potential lockout in 2027.
Yeah.
I'm very trying to be very perceptive of how teams are approaching the 2026 offseason and now heading into the 2026 season. And I'm very interested to see what the trade deadline is going to look like. I'm trying to be perceptive of what Major League Baseball in 2027 is going to look like when there's a new collective bargaining agreement, or if we get into a lockout situation and then we're dealing with a shortened 2027 season. So those are things that I'm kind of considering, looking at whether the Brewers are contending, competing. I wouldn't necessarily want the Brewers to be all in right now. So, looking at it, what the front office signaled with their moves, I strongly agree with Jay that doing a little bit of all of them. I would say that the Brewers are trying to keep the team competitive long term. And I'd even go as far as to say that Matt Arnold is trying to build for what a 2027, a post-2027 Major League Baseball could look like. So we look at the Brewers, they're the number one farm system. There's plenty of young talent here with a handful of veterans sprinkled in. And you look at some of the guys that they traded out, being Freddie Peralta, who's in his 30s, Nick Mears, who's getting a little bit older, Isaac Collins, who was a 28-year-old rookie, and then some of the guys that they brought in tons of younger guys. So, I'm not saying that, in 2027, we're going to get a salary cap and then the playing field is going to be even and the Brewers are going to turn into a dynasty for the next 7 years after that. But I'm not going to say that it's not something that Matt Arnold isn't thinking about. Obviously, I don't know. I don't have his phone number to be like, hey, are you making trades thinking about 2028 and beyond after next year's, collective bargaining agreement? But it's something that I think is in the cards for a way that Matt Arnold is approaching the roster itself. Steve asks, is there a player that we need to keep an eye on this year? Steve, we're going to bring up tons of player names throughout the rest of the show. So stay tuned in. I can't even narrow it down to one because we have so many different ways that we're going to look at different players. So.
This is all of our sections. Tyler and I took the time. I color-coded it. We actually took the time. There's multiple layers to all of this stuff. We have a really good episode planned for you guys. Yeah. I think that we don't take this seriously and we don't do homework and we don't I was just texting Tyler earlier that I was stressing out about this episode. So dude, this thing was rocking my brain for the last couple of days. We're taking this seriously. So we're going to have a lot of stuff you guys.
A lot of names coming, Steve. So what do you think the Brewers signaled with their moves by the front office?
It's going to sound a little bit like an echo in some senses of what you just said. I say continuing the trend of selling off new talent to develop that will go towards what could maybe become a dynasty with the new CBA looming. I wrote down the ultimate goal is still always a World Series. That's the goal, right? That's every team's goal. The Brewers have been knocking on that door over the last couple of years. Obviously, last year being the closest over the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years. But they just have a lot of young guys that are really growing up together. Jackson Chourio hasn't even come close to sniffing his ceiling. We got a guy named Jesus Mate who's a number 3 rated prospect in baseball. Bryce Terang looks like a world beater on a freaking superhuman USA team. He looked like the best player for a couple weeks there. Thank God he didn't catch that double play ball because I think that Manny Machado was trying to take his leg out. That's a whole different discussion. But we got a ton of guys. I mean, Sal Frelick, that guy's a Gold Glover out there. I mean, we got a number of pitchers, but what did he signal? Same old business as usual in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
So how thin is the margin of error in the NL Central specifically, do you think?
This is going to sound a little disrespectful. I'm sorry, but I'm not at the same time. It really is the same. It's the same thought process for me that it was going into 2025 as it is in 2026. It's between the Brewers and the Cubs. The Cardinals are finally in a full rebuild, free fall mode where, okay, guys, we have to build this thing from the ground up again. We can't be, going off the legs of a 41-year-old pitcher who somehow made it to 41 still striking people out like Anna Wainwright a couple years ago, right? The Pirates, they got a couple young players. They have the best pitcher in the National League, I should say, not Major League Baseball. I would still take Tarek Skubal over him. Yeah. But they're interesting to me. And the Reds, I mean, the Reds can't get out of their own goddamn way, dude. Honestly, what other way is there to look at the Reds other than they can't get out of their own way, dude? They have
I can't wait to talk about the Reds in the NL Central reality check. Can't wait it. Taylor said the Cubs like their first letter choke. I mean, I didn't see it quite as much as I hoped so, but I did see a handful of Cubs fans being like, well, we wouldn't have got swept in the NLCS. And it's like, you'll never know. You'll never know because you couldn't get there.
I agree.
As far as the margin of error goes in the NL Central for 2026, I'd say it's small, but not tiny. I don't think it's like Brewers, call it 95, Cubs 94 wins. Like it's within a game, and every game that they lose in April could affect them in October. Like I don't think it's that small of a margin of error, but I do think the Brewers and the Cubs, like you said, will be the front runners, and the Cubs will be tough. But I do think they have some question marks too. I think their bullpen gets a little more credit than it actually deserves, in my opinion. We've seen it over the years firsthand and secondhand now that Craig Counsell does do some questionable stuff. I mean, we had times where we questioned him. I mean, obviously there was plenty of people that wanted him fired long before he decided to leave for the Cubs. But I do think that they have some question marks on their roster, even bringing in Alex Bregman. He's not a great playoff hitter. He's not. I think he bats like 239 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And he's got plenty of experience, so it's not like it's a small sample size situation. So that roster has plenty of question marks too. I mean, if you're a Cubs fan, you got to be worried about the way that PCA played over the second half. I mean, you look at if you flipped his season over and he was bad in the first half and amazing in the second half, you'd be calling him an MVP candidate coming into the season. But he looked like an MVP candidate in the first half of the season, and then in the second half, he looked very average.
You look like a guy that needed to be sent down to AAA. Let's just be honest.
At times, yeah. I mean, they moved him down to like seventh in the order.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can't be coming into 2026 thinking that he's going to be an MVP candidate. So there's question marks on that roster too. I mean, they have some guys that are aging, and I will say it's going to be the last time that I try to give Cubs credit for a while. But Michael Busch is a monster. He's a fantastic first baseman. So they got that figured out. But moving on, let's look at. I don't think that the Brewers are entirely done. I do think it's possible that there could be one more move coming. Okay, so we have a little bit of differing levels of stuff that we could see happening. So, Jake, I'll kick it to you first. What do you think that there's potentially one more move that might be coming?
Yeah, so the listeners at home, one more move that still might be coming. We wanted to put levels to this, swap a prospect for a vet, an extension, a trade. There's multiple levels to this as well. So, like the loser I am, I picked the lowest of the lowest hanging fruit, and I went with an extension. But I did cheat a little bit because I have two guys that I want to extend. And I know the Brewers, before anybody gets in the comments and is killing me or thinking I'm an idiot, I know the Brewers have team control over both these guys for multiple years. But you could steal a little, like you can extend one's prime and steal the other's entire prime by extending them right now. Much like they did with Churio, where they signed him early, they got out ahead of it, and they're way ahead of the market. Because if this guy hits his ceiling, holy highway robbery is all I'm going to say. The two guys I have in mind, the first one is The Miz. That should be pretty obvious. I would like to lock up one of the pitchers that we developed. That would be nice. Not that Woody hasn't been fantastic, but injuries have played a part in him staying around, in my opinion. I would like to lock him up before he does actually win a Cy Young award, which if he puts it all together, let's be honest, dude, the high velocity with the wipeout, I mean, you're just not touching that. The second one, and this just might be me feeling good with him wearing the red, white, and blue right now, it's Bryce Terang. I'm like, dude, we got to lock this guy up, dude. You've seen second base is kind of becoming a premium position with a lot of talented second basemen around the league. I'm not talking National League. I'm talking Major League Baseball. A lot of talented second basemen. This guy has a platinum glove and a 50 stolen base year already. He's starting to show more pop. He's starting to hit for more average. He's starting to hit in the clutch. He's starting to hit lefties. I mean, this guy is just doing everything they're asking of him. And again, I know they have team control over both these guys for a couple more years, but I would like to extend that out and keep them for their entire primes in Milwaukee. Then after that, we can figure it out after that.
So Taylor wants to lock up Mizorowski, Bryce Terang, like you said, Sal Frelick, who is on my list as a potential extension, and Andrew Fisher, a guy who's going to come up a lot yet tonight. They don't have to worry about Fisher. His clock's not ticking yet. He just got drafted last summer. So we're super excited, but we can pump the brakes a little bit. And then Taylor also mentioned locking up King Vaughn, too. That I'd caution to just be a little bit careful of being a little bit of a prisoner of the moment because he was fantastic. They got him for this year. There's options coming. We're going to talk about some guys that are coming up as well at that position. Another guy that I would throw out as a potential extension candidate is William Contreras. Yeah. And that's going to be dependent on what you see from Jefferson Cuero in AAA. If he's raking in AAA and somebody is interested in Gary Sanchez as a DH and you want to bring Cuero up and you want to look at, I'm not saying that they should, but you want to look at trading William Contreras and getting an absolute king's ransom for somebody, I don't hate the idea, and I would understand where you're coming from if you're Matt Arnold. Again, I'm not saying that that's what they should be doing, but if Jefferson Cuero looks like a better version defending of William Contreras, I mean, there's no realm of general managing where you don't consider it.
Yeah, that guy might become a world champion in a few hours, though.
I mean, yeah. So good to ring.
Very true.
So looking at this outside of just trades, outside of just extensions, looking at potential trades, like something that would need to trigger a trade, I would say if you're looking at something like an upgrade for third baseman, or maybe a spot starter for the rotation.
Bad idea.
Taylor said if he can turn into Big Hefe, then it'll be hard to lock up William, and that's true. Because I mean, with the amount of times that William Contreras wants to catch, I mean, you're just not going to find at bats for Cuero, and he's only 23.
Yeah.
So, looking at it, if the Brewers were going to make a trade, I would say it's probably like a double A or lower player. I could say maybe a triple A guy at the deadline. But looking at like the kind of moves that fit Brewers history, I mean, Jose Quintana was signed in late spring. Quinn Priester was traded for in early April. In 2022, it was March 16th when they signed Andrew McCutchen. So looking at potentially Quinn Priester, Logan Henderson, and maybe Brandon Woodruff not being ready for the beginning of the season, one move that I could see the Brewers making is grabbing a veteran starter. There are a good amount of them still out there as free agents, and one that I would throw out there as a possibility would be a reunion with Frankie Montas. That's what I would throw out as a possibility for the Brewers to maybe get some starts out of somebody that's familiar, and then somebody to fill a need. Taylor asked how long we got with Yeli because that could move DH or William Contreras to DH more. I think he's a free agent after next season, something like that. We have him until he's 35, and I think he's 33, so I think we have him for 2 more years. Michael said I'm a little late. I made it. The Brewers team is going to shock the national media. First month will be an adjustment, maybe 500, and then we'll catch fire. So, I mean, last year they were 21 and 25 at one point.
I was going to say, so we're going to do what we did last year. That was a lot of fun. I'm down for that.
98 wins this year. And then looking at what prospects are safe and what prospects could potentially be available, I just looked at the Brewers' top 10. So looking at who's safe in the Brewers' top 10, I would say Jesus Mate, Luis Pena, Jet Williams, Brandon Sproat, Andrew Fisher, Jefferson Cuero, unless William Contreras is extended, then I could see him maybe becoming available. Looking at some other guys, Bishop Letson, Marco Dinges, I think those guys are safe. Guys that I could see potentially being available, Cooper Pratt is one, depending on how quickly Jesus Mate's coming up. I don't necessarily want to do this because he's young and controllable, but I think potentially Logan Henderson could be available. Again, don't want to, but I could see teams calling on him being like, you guys have this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. Like, what about that guy? And again, it depends on what the Brewers want in return or what Matt Arnold is looking for. I do think if Jet Williams plays well, as well as David Hamilton, I think Brock Wilken could be available. And then I think it's possible, depending on Andrew Vaughn's play, Jake Bowers, and then when we get to some of the prospects that we're going to talk about, Blake Burke, I think depending on those guys, I do think Tyler Black is a guy that could potentially become available.
I can see that.
Other guys that could be potentially moved, I would say Blake Perkins, Akil Baddoo, who is just on a free agent deal, Trevor McGill, who was a very highly rumored, potentially tradable player over this past winter. And then I would say maybe Brandon Lockridge, depending on just the Brewers' outfield depth in general. I think his spring is definitely going to make the Brewers want to hold on to him a little bit longer because he's hitting for some power, which is very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But moving into some of these positional battles, we'll talk about which ones are maybe a little bit more legit and which ones are a little more medium. Looking at positional battles, Jake, I'll go to you first. What do you think is a legit position battle on the Brewers right now?
Again, the lowest of lowest hanging fruit is third base, right? Yeah. Now, maybe not the lowest. I should take that back. You could talk starting pitcher or ace, right? Mm-hmm. And I've talked to you about this before, but I don't think that the Brewers have an ace. I don't think they have to have an ace. I think they go by the power of the many more than the power of one. You know, they're kind of polar opposite of the Pirates, if you really think about it. If you take a step back, like, oh, yeah, that guy's really good. The rest of the team's kind of shit. Then you look at the Brewers, you're just like, holy shit, everybody on this goddamn team is good. So Brewers don't need an ace. They don't. I mean, and I'm just gonna give you credit right now for something that you said that I thought was really smart. Is they have two guys on this roster, and Woody and Miz Orowski, that have ace type stuff. So I totally agree with that. But the one that I went with that I think is legit is third base. Hamilton, he was Murphy's quantum leap pick. That's going to be interesting if Murphy's talking that highly about a guy, and then you bring in God, I'm going to butcher his name, Rengifo. He's a solid vet. He's been in baseball for a while. Does Murphy, I'm not going to tell Murphy how to do his job. This guy's back-to-back Manager of the Year winner. Do you go with the solid vet, or do you go with the guy where you believe in his talent a little bit more, right? And Hamilton is talked about as a guy who has some real speed, some real pop. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle third base. That's a discussion they had going into last year, and that's something that Caleb Durbin fixed midway through the year. So it'll be really interesting. And I know Tyler Black is more turned into a first baseman, but man, would it ever be beneficial for that guy to be a third baseman right now?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he's played some second base too in the minors also. But the other quantum leap, the last quantum leap guy that Murphy brought up was Bryce Durang. So, I mean, he absolutely hit the nail on the head with that one. So I think the way that you put it was really well done. That you look at Rengifo, the veteran guy, or the betting on the talent of David Hamilton. Michael said Rengifo and Hamilton will platoon. I will say this. I agree with you that that's a legit battle. The thing is, both of those guys are better than Oliver Dunn and Vinny Capra.
That's fair.
So either way, I think I'm feeling better about that.
That's fair.
And then one that I threw out there that I think is PR driven. I do think it is PR driven that the shortstop position is up for battle. Jesus Mate was sent back down to the minors, which I don't think should shock anybody. And yes, plenty has been made of Joey Ortiz's struggle at the plate, which again, that's another thing Pat Murphy did think is going to improve in 2026, which would be great. But I don't think Jesus Mate is going to sniff the major league roster in 2026, if we're being honest. Which we'll talk about that in just a second. But I do think it's possible Cooper Pratt debuts, but he's not competing with Joey Ortiz for the opening day roster. Joey Ortiz is going to be the opening day shortstop, and I don't think it's particularly close a positional battle for anything that's brought up as much noise as Jesus Mate has made. So looking at the roster, looking at guys who are potentially fighting for playing time versus guys that are here for depth, I don't know if there's anybody you want to throw out as fighting for playing time versus guys who are fighting for depth.
I guess there maybe is one guy that we could talk about as maybe fighting for playing time.
Get three.
It's tough to say, but I think Garrett Mitchell could be one of those guys who could be odd man out with Jackson Chourio playing center field and left field. Hard to take that guy out of the lineup when he plays multiple positions. Blake Perkins is so good on defense, and he's a switch hitter that makes it a little bit tough. But Garrett Mitchell is the first guy that comes to mind. I don't even have Blake Perkins making my 26-man roster, but I have Garrett Mitchell over him. But Garrett Mitchell is a guy with his injury history. It's tough to keep him on the roster because he doesn't stay there very long. I'm not trying to talk shit. Like, I'm just being real with everybody here. That's tough. Lockridge is a great answer, Michael.
Yep. Brandon Lockridge is a great pick. A couple other guys that I would throw out there. One is Tyler Black. I think he's a guy who's fighting for playing time. I think David Hamilton is fighting for playing time. And then one other one that I threw out there is Craig Yoho. I think he's a guy who's going to be fighting for some playing time this season, even though I think he's going to start in AAA. Taylor said I thought it would be Mitch and Perk in center field. Akil Baddoo is also potentially in that mix, and Brandon Lockridge is as well. So there's essentially 6 or 7 guys going for 4 or 5 spots. Yeah. We'll talk about that when we get into our roster predictions. But a couple depth guys that I would throw out there. Obviously, Gary Sanchez was brought in for depth. Yep. People are going to be wondering, where's Jefferson Cuero coming into this? He's going to be in AAA so that he can get 450 at-bats this year and not 150.
Yes.
I would rather have him get 450 AAA at-bats than 150 Major League at-bats.
Yes.
So Gary Sanchez is going to be here to basically try to hit some lefties once in a while and backup William Contreras on the 8 days out of the year that he doesn't play catcher.
And then when he hits a home run every 50 games, I'm gonna yell El Gary very loud. It's gonna be fantastic. I cannot wait.
Jake Bauers is also a depth guy. I think he'll platoon with Vaughn a little bit, especially when there's righties on the mound. But I think Vaughn is going to be mostly the everyday first baseman. Jake Bauers will be sprinkled in there. He'll get some DH. He'll get a little bit of left field, action. And then I do think Blake Perkins and Akil Baddoo are more depth guys than they are like roster locks looking for playing time. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is going to be a very interesting segment because we're going to look at farm guys. Michael said Baddoo now has a hamstring injury that'll land him on the DL to start the season. Honestly, I didn't have him on my 26-man roster, so I don't know that he's even going to make the team if he does land on the injured list. Looking at farm guys, we have separated into 3 categories. We both have a handful of guys. We have a section for guys who will see time on the Major League roster in 2026, guys who might see time on the roster in 2026, and guys who will not see time in 2026. So, Jake, let's start with the guys who will see time. Who do you have on your list of prospects who are going to see time on the 2026 Milwaukee Brewers roster?
All right, I have 2 guys on here that, honestly, I'm just going to tell you right now, these are all pitchers.
Oh,
all my wills are pitchers. First one, I do think that Yoho will get another chance.
Yep, he's on my list.
I also have Robert Gosser as a guy that will get some time in the majors.
Makes sense.
I have Brandon Sporet that will get some time.
That's Sproat.
Yep. Sproat.
Makes sense.
Sproat. Okay. And then the other guy is Logan Henderson. I have 4
also
guys
on my list.
Four guys, all pitchers. The Brewers with pitching, they just go hand in hand, honestly.
Yeah, I also put Logan Henderson on my list as a guy who will see time. And I did put Tyler Black on my list just because he is still kind of a back and forth guy. He got some time last year, but I think he's going to be on the Major League roster at times. I broke this up into 3 colors. So I have purple for guys who will, pink for guys who might, and red for guys who won't. And I have written in pink as like the middle might see time. On the line of guys who will, I do have Jefferson Cuero written on there.
Really?
Just in case there's like a scenario where, Contreras' finger's bothering him, so they're going to give him 10 days, and you bring up Cuero so he gets, a little bit of at bats just so you have another catcher on the roster. Or, if Gary Sanchez has some arthritis because he's 35 years old, and he's got to take 10 days off of cheering the guys on from the dugout, and you just need to have a backup catcher on the roster. So he's kind of in between will and might for me.
Okay.
But if we jump down into the might see time guys, some really, really interesting names. And I'm really tempted to go first, but I want to know who you have on your list first.
All right. I only have 3 guys in this section, just so everybody knows. The first one, I have Cooper Pratt.
Same.
I think that he's highly rated. He's been in with the farm system for a couple years now. And maybe they want to show off a shiny toy that somebody might want to trade for. Just my thought process on that. A guy who's going to allow us to not do one of these, but 2 of these bad boys. And he's just hitting meatballs on the World Baseball Classic, Andrew Fisher. This guy's just tearing the cover off the baseball right now, crushing it 440 plus feet, hitting it 107, 108 miles per hour. Andrew Fisher might, and that would be shocking to a lot of people, I think. And then my third one is a guy that was the big trade piece for Freddie Peralta, and that's Jet Williams. So 2 guys at shortstop that, if they're crushing it down in minor leagues, and not that we're cheering for Joey to struggle, but if Joey continues to struggle at the plate, you're going to have to address that in some way, shape, or form. Now, Joey does bring value. Never heard any problems about him. He sounds like a good locker room guy, and he's very, very good with the glove. He's got a real slick glove there at shortstop. Him and Terang have a thing going there. They turn a lot of double plays, but Jet Williams and Cooper Pratt are definitely going to be guys that you're going to have to watch out for.
So this is a spoiler alert for my guys who won't see time. I do have Andrew Fisher in that list, but I did write in parentheses right next to him, 99% that he won't. So I left the door open the tiny crack that you could. I agree with Cooper Pratt. He's the first guy on my list who might see time. strictly because of if Joey Ortiz's bat continues to struggle. Let's say Made's hitting the cover off the ball in Double-A, and you have Cooper Pratt in Triple-A who's batting 250. You might just need to call Cooper Pratt up and see what he's got.
Yeah.
So I think it's very, very possible that we see Cooper Pratt in the second half of 2026. Another one that I put on my list is Brock Wilken. If Luis Rengifo can't find his 2023 production, I think he's potentially a guy that the Brewers just DFA. And then you can bring up Brock Wilken, and you have Brock Wilken and David Hamilton jockeying for playing time.
Okay.
And Jet Williams does fit in that potential left side of the infield picture as well. And then another guy, this is a deep cut, but I think there's a possibility that Blake Burke might see time. And again, this is completely dependent on how people are playing first base. You know, if Andrew Vaughn, and again, we don't want this to happen, but if Andrew Vaughn regresses kind of back to how he was for Chicago, if Jake Bauers is striking out too much, which I think is already a problem, and Tyler Black's not giving you what you're looking for at first base. I mean, I wanted Wes Clark to kind of catch on, but if Blake Burke is hitting for not only power but also for a better average, I think there's a chance that Blake Burke makes it onto the roster at some point this year. Michael said, Joey will be making the haters shut up soon. He has a significant improvement in bats 280. All right, we haven't gotten to bold predictions, but I like it.
Dude, I was thinking that. Exact same thing. That's a bold prediction, Michael.
Yeah. And I'll go first on guys who won't see time. None of these should really be shocking, but I have Jesus Made, Luis Pena, Andrew Fisher, 99% likely won't see Major League roster time this year. And then I put Marco Dingus on the roster, or on guys who won't see time on the roster yet this year either. He looked really good for Appleton last year, so I think he's very probably starting at AAA, but I don't think the Brewers' number 10 prospect is going to see any time in 2026. Is there anybody else you would throw on that list of guys who won't see time?
I actually have Jefferson Cuero for a lot of the same reasons that you were talking about before, with just getting him more at bats. You kind of talked me into it. God, when was this? This might have even been back in like December when we were just randomly talking about the Brewers on Xbox one day. But you were talking about how he's only 23. He needs more playing time. His defense is good. And you were just like dropping knowledge. And I was just like, okay, now I have to look some shit up. So then, I'm on free time. Instead of just enjoying my free time, I'm still looking up sports stuff. So thanks for that. And I'm just like, you know what? He's 100% right. This guy just needs more at-bats. We need to figure some things out with this guy's bat. He's going to be fantastic once he figures that out. So that's the only reason I have him down there. I wouldn't hate if he made it up and proved me wrong. I love being wrong. I would love being wrong in situations like this. So that's the only reason I have him down there.
Yeah, mine is purely situational. Like it's pretty much just injuries or nothing else. So that's why. So I would be happy to not have him up because Contreras and Gary are healthy and raking.
Yes, for sure.
So as far as any other positional battles go, maybe some under the radar names that you might want to know, you might want to be able to flex so you can drop them at the bar and have people being like, yo, this guy knows ball. Like, dude, you were just talking about a guy who's in Double-A for the Brewers who's going to be on the roster next season. Like, damn, how much attention do you pay to the Brewers? That guy knows so much about the Brewers. These are some names you're going to want to know. So, Jake, we talked about a bullpen guy, like a prospect banging on the door, and a deep pull from the farm. So, who are some names that you are looking to know under the radar?
Well, one prospect that I read a ton about would be Jorge Guzman. Now, he was in Single A last year, but I read like 4 articles on this guy, and I swear to God, every paragraph talked about this guy's athleticism. Like, he's just – apparently this guy is just oozing with athleticism that the regular man is just jealous of. So, I mean, that might be a name to keep an eye on. Michael's just dropping just knowledge over here. I'm going to read that comment real quick. With our depth in the minors, all these top prospects trying to get them all consistent playing time, how many even, though could be on AAA roster, go to AA, possible position change, say Pratt, just because of his height, moving to first base? I mean, they did. Just to answer that real quick, they did draft him as a shortstop out of high school, and they've kind of kept him there. I do understand your thought process of moving him to first base. He is a bigger shortstop, but that's kind of a trend in the majors right now anyways, is a taller shortstop.
Bigger shortstops, especially in the NL Central.
So a pitcher to watch, I kind of cheated with this one too, but because he is highly ranked. But I have Bishop Letson as a minor league pitcher.
Yep.
He's not a super deep pull, but he is a guy that if you don't pay attention to the Brewers, you're going to be like, who the hell is that guy? So that's kind of where I got with that one. Those are the only two I have because there's just so many guys that people talk about, honestly.
Yeah. Michael, I think it's worth bringing up, and we'll probably talk about some of that stuff in the season. We've gotten some good suggestions on how we should cover some of the minor league teams during the season. Jake and I are kind of working on scheduling that out for during the season. So that we're not only talking about the Brewers and then guys when they come up, we're actually going to focus a little bit more on some of the AAA and AA guys who are going to be knocking on the door soon. So for me, a bullpen guy, he did make 12 starts last season, but it's actually the guy who Tyrone Taylor and Adrian Hauser were traded for, and that's Coleman Crow is a guy that I'm looking to keep an eye on. Because over 50 innings pitched, which did come in 12 starts, then we're looking at basically 4 and some change per start. Had a 3.24 ERA and 64 strikeouts in 50 innings to go with only 12 walks and a 104 whip. That sounds to me like a guy who could come up potentially a year early. Let's say it's 2027 and he pitches out of the bullpen and then makes the 2028 starting rotation. That's the kind of guy that I'm looking at for Coleman Crow. Looking at a prospect banging on the door, I did just mention his name, but for me it is Blake Burke. Seeing him in Appleton last year, he is a combination. He's got more than just power and strikeouts. Like he's not, Prince Fielder where he's either hitting a home run or striking out every time he's up to bat. He's got a good hit tool and can hit for power, and he is a unit. Blake Burke is a unit. That dude's got some beef too. And I don't think it's necessarily a secret that's why the Brewers in back-to-back drafts in 24 and 25 doubled up on corner infielders from Tennessee. That's where Blake Burke and Andrew Fisher came from. So, both of those guys have pretty great hit tools, and I'm keeping a very close eye on Blake Burke just because Wes Clark is 26 and has not made his debut yet.
Where didn't the Tennessee coach get hired as an MLB coach? Was it the Giants?
That sounds accurate.
I think that's where it was. I don't remember, but I remember reading that the Tennessee fans were pissed because they love their manager. And obviously the Brewers are just like, yeah, we like this guy too. He knows how to develop young talent. I have to know now. Assuming that's what you're looking up, right? Okay.
Yes, you are correct. Tony Vitello went from the Giants to from Tennessee to the Giants. So Good job.
All right. Hey, remember that, baby.
Now, 2 deep pulls from the farm. One of them is not super deep because he is kind of jumping up the Brewers prospect rankings. Is Josh Adamszewski. He played in 3 different leagues in 2025, had 307 plate appearances. He slashed 320 with a 420 on base, with a 490 slug for a 910 OPS. And then in the Arizona Fall League, he had 82 plate appearances. He hit 4 home runs, batted 277 with a 415 on base, 538 slug, and a 953 OPS. So Josh Adamszewski, he is a second baseman, probably going to start with the Timber Rattlers, but will very likely make it up to AA before the season is out. And then the other one, this one's a pretty deep pull unless you pay attention to international prospect signings, but from the all names department, start dropping the name Ricky Monies.
Oh, you son of a bitch. What a name. I love that name, bro.
Start dropping the name Ricky Monies. He was hitting 108 mile-an-hour exit velocities at 16.
I'm telling you right now, dude. When Jesus Mane and Ricky Monies are on the roster, we're getting both jerseys. I don't care which one you get, which one I get, but we're going to have jerseys that say made money, dude. Made money.
Oh, that's so tough.
So
dude,
tough.
Did you hear Jesus Mane's walk-up song during spring training was Personal Jesus?
Brother. Hey, save some aura for the rest of us, huh? Jeez.
But Ricky Monies, he was the MVP of the Amateur Scouting League. The Brewers signed him. He has now keep in mind these prospect ranges, they go from 40 to 80 with 60 being the average. Ricky Money's 17 years old. 17 years old, and this is where he's at. He's got a 50 hit tool, a 60 power tool, 50 running, 50 arm, 55 for fielding at shortstop and third base, and a 50 overall at 17 years old.
This guy, he hasn't even developed, like, his body isn't even fully
actual
developed,
body, yeah.
bro.
Yes, this is a literal teenager.
Dude, this guy is 4 years older than my son, bro. Oh my god, dude.
And he is a 50 grade prospect at 17. So super deep pull, but start dropping the name, and people are gonna be like, "No way, you made that up." It's a real name, real prospect. Brewers just signed him this winter.
Hey, they say things come in threes.
Hey,
They say things come in threes. That's all I'm saying. If you know where I'm going with that,
I like
I'm
it.
saying.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's jump into our roster predictions and look at our 26-man rosters. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm looking at a potential of 12 pitchers and 14 position players instead of 13 and 13, which is kind of where I started. But I do think early in the season, the Brewers might go into the season with fewer pitchers and then make a move like literally in the first weekend of the season. So that's something I threw out there. But I went at this. I just basically went around the diamond and then looked at some of the depth guys, and then I went the rotation into the bullpen.
Go ahead.
To look at pitchers. So just get the obvious ones out of the way. William Contreras, Gary Sanchez, Andrew Vaughn, Jake Bowers, Bryce Terang, Joey Ortiz, Luis Rengifo, David Hamilton, Jackson Chourio, Sal Frelick, Garrett Mitchell, Christian Yelich. And then what I have is 2 out of the 4 of Tyler Black, Blake Perkins, Brandon Lockridge, and Akil Baddoo. So Akil Baddoo we can rule out because he's potentially on the injured list. I was going to leave him off anyways. The 2 that I had stars next to out of those 4 that I thought would make it would be Blake Perkins and Brandon Lockridge. And I understand that means you're going in with a lot of outfielders. I don't think of Christian Yelich as an outfielder going into the season. I think of him strictly as a DH going into the season. I think he's going to play probably less than 25 games in the outfield, maybe 30, depending on, potentially some injuries. But those would be the position players that I have. I don't know if you have anything different.
So you had Terang, Vaughn, Ortiz, Contreras, Sanchez, Rengifo, Hamilton, Bowers, correct? For infield, outfield, Chourio, Yelich. I just put Yelich in outfield, even though I put left field /DH.
Yep.
Sal Frelick, Garrett Mitchell. That's what you have for outfield, right?
Yep. And then I would throw Blake Perkins and Brandon Lockridge in as well.
See, what I did with those guys, because Priester's probably going to start the season on the injured list.
Yep.
I put Lockridge or Perkins over Priester on this roster, but I do have Priester as the best 26 is kind of what I wrote down.
Yeah, yep. I have a guy on the roster in his spot that's going to go down when Quinn Priester returns. Okay. So pitchers, I have Brandon Woodruff, Jacob Mizorowski, Chad Patrick, DL Hall, Kyle Harrison is the guy that I have in Quinn Priester's spot right now.
Okay.
And then I have Rob Zastryzny, Grant Anderson, Aaron Ashby, Angel Zerpa, Jared Koenig, Abner Uribe, and Trevor McGill.
Oh. So I have Priester on there, like I said. I have Sport on there.
Sproat.
And then I have Gosser on there and Yoho.
Huh?
I have Gosser, Yoho, and Sport making the roster, the opening day roster. So that would be what I have different. I have Koenig, Rob Z, McGill, Uribe, Hall. I have all the other ones. So, again, Priester probably going to start in the IL. So I have Lockridge or Perkins taking that spot momentarily to start the year.
So I'm going to throw out a stat, and it's going to make you not feel great about Blake Perkins. And this obviously would change with Akil Baddoo's health. But if the Brewers wanted to, say, keep Tyler Black on the Major League roster for opening day, wouldn't shock me to see the Brewers potentially trade Blake Perkins for anything, depending on what somebody wants to offer for him. Danny Jansen, in 25 games last season, had a .7 WAR for the Brewers. Blake Perkins played 54 games for the Brewers and had a .3 WAR.
Yeah, tough year to play last year.
Yeah. And I know it's a valuable trait to have to be able to switch hit, but honestly, it's really not holding a ton of weight for me. I think this might be the year that the Brewers let Blake Perkins go.
I can see that.
All right. Moving on, we're going to acknowledge some feelings just because we want to make sure that we're covering all the bases. But we're going to acknowledge some feelings. Okay, so in the interest of being fully recognizing all of the potential concerns that people have, acknowledging feelings that have come up during the spring or just a general concern for the Brewers in general. First things first, are we worried about the offense?
No, we're not worried about the offense.
Not really, but continue.
I would. Why would I be nervous about the offense? Contreras had a down year last year because of his thumb. I fully expect to bounce back. Yelly at any moment could just absolutely get on a burner for 2.5 months. He's still that talented, and yes, he's still worth the contract. I don't care what anybody says.
Yep.
Jackson Chourio could have a put-it-all-together year, and the guy could honestly just go for 40 and 40, and I would be like, holy crap, that guy's really good. Oh, my God, I'm having so much fun watching this guy, but I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like, oh, my God, where'd that come from?
If Jackson Chourio played in New York or L.A., I don't know that they would stop talking about how good of a start to a career he's had, honestly.
That's valid.
But because he plays in Milwaukee, he doesn't get the acknowledgement that he deserves.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, you got that going on. Terang, he's become really, really scary, consistent at the plate. He's starting to hit lefties. He's starting to hit for power. Again, I brought it up earlier. He has a 50 stolen base season. We have a guy who nobody really thinks about offensively in Sal Frelick. The guy almost hit 290 last year. He hit 288 last year. So that's another guy. We have a 5-tool guy who can't stay healthy. If this guy stays healthy, Garrett Mitchell, that's another guy who can hit for power. That's a 20 home run, 30 to 35 stolen base guy if he stays healthy and he plays 125 games. That guy's just waiting to hit 25 home runs and steal 35 bases. Seriously. I mean, there's just a number of guys. We don't even know what other guys can do. Maybe Joey does go crazy like Michael Lauer is talking about. Maybe he does put it all together. I don't know if I go as far as saying 280, but if he bounced back and gave me 268, I would be very happy with that.
258.
So, I mean, to answer your question, absolutely, positively, that's probably the least of my worries about this Brewers team is the offense.
I'm just going to read my notes because Jake pretty much covered all of it. I put, honestly, not really. I'm a little hesitant about Joey, but overall, not really. Yelich was at an all-star level last season. Churrio's going to keep growing. Sal and Bryce Terang are good at the plate. Andrew Vaughn is raking in spring. Contreras is due for a big bounce back, especially power-wise. Mm-hmm. I'm a strong believer in Garrett Mitchell, as is Jake. And there are enough guys to rotate at third base that if somebody's cold, they can put somebody else in the lineup. We talked about it, like Rengifo, Hamilton, Jet Williams, Brock Wilken might get a shot. There's plenty of guys to rotate in at third base if they're not getting enough offense from the position. So, honestly, I'm not really worried about the offense either. No. Now, the bullpen. Are you calm or are you panicking as far as the bullpen is concerned?
Okay, so I went back and forth on this one a little bit, but I wrote down that the Brewers have done enough to earn my blinded just faith, my blind faith. So I say calm because for some reason the Brewers just, it's like the Packers, right? The Packers bring in a quarterback. They're just like, hey, we'll make you look like an NFL quarterback. Then we're going to let you go and you're going to get us another draft pick. How about that? Does that sound like something that just happened? And by the way, I brought it up last year when Simon and Brian were on the show. I said Anthony Richardson before anybody else. So I don't want to hear a word that we don't know ball. So when Anthony Richardson gets traded to the Packers, I said it first. Just want to get that out there. The Brewers just understand pitching. They know how to teach pitching. So I am not going to panic about bullpen depth because we have 14 million pitchers, dude. I mean, who is Rob Zestrinsky? Honestly, I only know him because the Brewers are just like, hey, go out there, give me 2 innings today, lock these son of a bitches down, then we're going to move on to Sunday. Like, dude, how do they do this all the time, bro? It just makes no sense.
I love the way that you said that just because I put on here, if I wasn't familiar with the Brewers organization, I might be slightly worried.
Yes.
I'm a little worried about Jared Koenig just because I do think he's had a little bit of velocity issues in the springtime. But I do think Aaron Ashby and Angel Zerpa can handle plenty of left-handed leverage. Angel Zerpa, that dude's just got nails in his body. Dude is made of nails if you've watched the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah.
Dude froze Ohtani.
Yeah.
Froze him with 97-mile-an-hour painted on the corner.
Oof.
So I'm not worried about potentially shifting Jared Koenig down an inning or two and giving leverage to those two guys. Also, DL Hall and Robert Gosser are two other left-handed options that could potentially pitch out of the bullpen at times. And then Abney Uribe and Trevor McGill is an absolutely filthy 8th and 9th inning combo. I do not care what order you use them in.
Neither do I.
I do not care. The only thing I'm really looking at the bullpen depth is they have to replace Nick Mears' innings. And I do think Aaron Ashby is going to be a part of that. But I'm not worried about having Jared Koenig's leverage replaced because I think there's guys that can handle it. Michael said Zerpa is that dude. He 100% looks the part of like, the Brewers traded 2 rotational pieces to go get that guy. It's already showing why, and he's barely been with the team at all. Do you think the Brewers are built for 162 games or just say 100 that they're going to be, good until August and September, or are they going to be good beyond that?
With as deep as this roster has become, this is kind of becoming the trend of this episode very quickly. I say 162. I just cannot think of a scenario as, there's all those simulations that people like to run with, this happened, the percentages. I cannot think of a scenario outside of, a melee of injuries, which obviously we don't want. I can't see a scenario where they're not first or second in NL Central. Honest to God. Yeah. I cannot see a situation. Our division is bad outside of those 2 teams, the Cubs and the Brewers. So
yeah,
I think they're made for 162. They're going to compete for the NL Central, and then we're going to get to October and we're going to have some white knuckle baseball again.
Michael asked how many games does Ashby start? I'm going to say 0. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Well, he had some starts, I guess.
If you want to call them openings, but if we're talking starts, I'm going to say 0.
Like real starts, I would agree. Like where you have to go 5 innings or something. Yeah.
Right.
No.
Yeah. I agree with you. I do think the Brewers as an organization have had some bad injury luck. Like we haven't seen Brandon Woodruff pitch in the playoffs for a good while. More on that to come. Obviously, we've talked about Garrett Mitchell. Like he was in both of our bold predictions last season and then unfortunately didn't get to pan out. But we've seen them have injuries and remain competitive. I mean, we've seen Christian Yelich go down multiple times. We had William Contreras deal with a hand injury all last season. I mean, Jackson Chourio and Sal Frelick missed chunks of last summer. Like we've seen the Brewers have some bad injury luck, but still remain competitive. And to your point, the organizational depth, I expect that to continue. I expect this team to remain competitive regardless of who gets hurt, inevitably who gets hurt. If the Brewers go through a healthy 2026 and we get to see them hit their ceilings, this team can win the World Series. Yeah. That's how good their ceiling is. But again, we've seen them have some bad injury luck. We'll see if that continues. Now, the question comes down to, are the Brewers all in or are they cautious? And personally, I'd say they're somewhere in between because I do think the Brewers have the opportunity to go all in. And that's where I say something like a Logan Henderson could be available. Let's say the Brewers are first in the NL Central and they trail the Dodgers in the National League by 2 games. And I'm only going to use this name just because it's a big familiar name. I know he's not getting traded, but let's say the Guardians are willing to give us Jose Ramirez in exchange for Logan Henderson. Something like that. Like that's where I say like Logan Henderson could be available and you could go all in. Again, J-Ram's not getting traded. He's a franchise generational player for the Guardians, but I'm just giving you an example of a way that the Brewers could go all in. That's why I say Cooper Pratt could be available. If Joey Ortiz is giving you enough at the plate to go with his great defense and Mate is banging on the door of AAA and you're like, shit, we might have to call up this 18-year-old who's going to be 19 during the season and put him in AAA. We have nowhere to go with Cooper Pratt. Let's package him with Logan Henderson and go get, one of the Nailers or, just throwing out random names. Let's, Jeremy Pena from the Astros, a guy that we would still love for the Brewers to trade for. Something like that. Like the Brewers have a team that will compete with the opportunity to go all in at the trade deadline. Other than that, I don't think it necessarily makes a ton of sense to try to go all in and try to spend a ton. Like for the people still complaining about Mark Adonasio not spending enough, there's a lot of uncertainty coming after this season, and I don't want to be spending against that uncertainty, to be honest. So I don't know what you think, if the Brewers are all in or if they're cautious or somewhere in between like me.
I really love how you phrased that, by the way. I wrote that they're cautious. I wish I would have had the same thought process as you, honestly, now that I'm reading my notes. But I wrote cautious just for the reason of not that they're not trying to win. I don't want people to get that notion that I don't think they're trying to not go for the World Series. That's the goal. I said that before, right? But cautious as the way of they do trade some players and replenish, the farm system. So they're doing kind of polar opposite of what the Bucks are doing, to be completely honest with you. The Bucks every year, I'm all in. I'm pushing all my chips in. I'm pushing all my chips in. I'm pushing all my chips in. You're just pushing it down the road. And the Packers went through that too for a little while, right? When Aaron Rodgers was on his last legs, when Aaron and Devontae were running the NFL, the Packers were all in, all in, all in. And you see that the Packers got extremely lucky. Now, some really slick GM work by Goody there to kind of reflip the roster to very young and, get them competing again. But they kind of went all in again. So for the Brewers, I like the approach. I think cautious may sound negative to some people. I'm not using it in a negative connotation. So I like how the Brewers are operating. And honestly, I hope it continues for the rest of my life because I would like one of my teams to just dominate forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's obviously the only thing is to be like, well, they're never going to win a World Series in my lifetime. But I know people don't like it when David Stern said taking the bites at the apple. But I don't disagree with it.
I don't either. And honestly, you could have said the same thing about the Bucks not that long ago, right? I mean, 13 years ago in 2013 when we were pretty clearly, in my opinion, the actual worst team in the NBA. And there were a lot of people that were tuned out to Milwaukee. Milwaukee was going to be moved to Seattle. Like, there was a lot of talk about that.
Yeah.
And they turned it around. Now you get lucky with a generational player, but the Brewers have a guy that could turn into a generational player in Jackson Chourio. Like, we're just going to call it what it is.
A bunch of really good pieces around them.
And they got a Jesus Mate who is projected. I mean, I'm not trying to get too far ahead, but, like, never say never is what I'm going to say.
And there's obviously more guys on the field than there are on the court, so it's not a perfect, one-to-one. Like, one guy's not going to carry you as much in baseball, but
that's fair.
It's one of those things where if you can get yourself to the playoffs every year, you have a shot.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to go on the path to success. Michael said it's not cautious. Maybe it's more common sense. Maybe just my take. I think that's fair. I think like Jake said, that the word cautious maybe has a negative connotation, that they're being careful or passive. And I don't think that's where Jake thinks the Brewers are going. They're not being passive by being cautious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the path to success, Jake, what has to go right for the Brewers to compete and contend?
Okay, so I wrote down that one of the young pitchers is legit. Patrick Henderson, one of those guys has to be legit. The Quinn Priester experience is real. It's not just a one-hit wonder. It's real. He is that guy. I think those two things are the first two dominoes that have to fall. Mizorowski becomes a top-tier name where his production matches where his name has kind of gotten him to this point. He has some really fancy pitches. He's really ooh-ah to look at every once in a while when you watch him, and he dominated the Dodgers. He was probably the best player for the Brewers in the NLCS if you had to really think about it. But Mizorowski becomes a top-tier pitcher. Bullpen to stay elite, that's just something that is a foregone conclusion in my opinion. And a few guys on offense have to take a jump. Chourio, Frelick, and some good health for Mitchell and Woody. Those are the things that I think has to go right for the Brewers to get to the spot where they want to be.
Yeah, I have a couple of those things in my notes as well. I think it goes without saying that we need Garrett Mitchell healthy. I think he really elevates the Brewers' offense. If you can have a guy who's batting seventh for you, who, like Jake was saying before, can hit you 20, 25 home runs and give you 30, 35 stolen bases. I think that also gives you the potential to move Sal Frelick down in the order, not because you need to move him down because he's not a good hitter, but just because it gives you more guys to get on base for the top of your order.
Yep.
And then second thing I have is I need Brandon Woodruff healthy in the playoffs specifically. The last time he pitched in the playoffs for the Milwaukee Brewers, so did Corbin Burns.
Oh,
That's how long it's been since we've had Brandon Woodruff healthy in the playoffs.
Jesus.
That, and then I do think a resurgence by William Contreras makes the Brewers roster extremely dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Andrew Vaughn, like I said, is, potentially could regress to what he was before the Brewers got him for Aaron Savali. But if you're looking at a roster where you're like Churio, Turang are leading off for you, you have Yelich batting second, and you have Contreras, Vaughn, Sal, Frelick, Mitchell, and then you're looking at your other platoon guys, and Joey Ortiz the bottom of the order.
Yeah.
That's a lineup of 7 or 8 guys that you really don't feel great about being able to keep off the bases.
Fair.
Looking at what guy needs to take a step forward, a hitter specifically that has to take a step forward, I do have Jackson Churio on here.
Oh.
Now I'm going to say this. He's not under any pressure to lose his job. Not at all. But 2026 is when we were kind of looking at it when he was coming up, that we were hoping he'd start competing for MVPs. It was 2026. And, we might have been a little prisoner of the moment, really excited, but I did put in my notes that I'd love to see him get a 30-30 season this year. He's got 2 2020s. Let's keep him healthy. Let's get him a full season of being good. Like his rookie season, he was kind of bad, and then after June 30th, he was an absolute monster.
Yeah.
Last year, he was just really good and then hurt a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see a full, healthy, good season from Jackson Churio where he's, an all-star level and looking to compete for some of those MVPs. Thanks for tuning in, Kim.
Appreciate it, honestly.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Who are you looking for a hitter that has to take a step forward?
Well, Jesus Christ, I should have went first. I was like, I think I may surprise some people with my pick, but you went Jackson Churio. I went Sal Frelick, is who I went with. And it's for one specific reason. I don't think he needs to hit more home runs. I like where his batting average is, 288. That's a great batting average. Stay right around there. Mm-hmm. 47 walks. He commands the strike zone very well. He's going to dominate with the challenges. I think he's going to absolutely dominate. I think he's going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries on this roster.
Tyler Black's actually going to be the guy that's the best at that.
He's very good. I did write down his defensive run saved. He was a Gold Glover 2024, obviously, with a plus 16 defensive run saved. I know this is about hitting, but I just wanted to talk about his value before I kind of pooped on him a little bit. He only had plus 9 last year. But the area where I think that he could be a little bit better and take a step forward is actually when he gets on base, because he's great at doing that, is stealing more bases and forcing it a little bit.
Okay.
I think that he has the speed, and I think that he has the feel for the game where he could be a 30-plus stolen base guy, and that just elevates the Brewers to a whole nother level. I would like to see Bryce Turang get back to that a little bit more. Maybe, Jackson Churio is a guy that you could think about. I mean, we have a lot of guys with speed, so let's just honestly the Brewers forced the issue last year, and a lot of people complain when they got thrown out at home, and you hit home on that a lot, talking about every time everybody would do it. I think the Brewers are so good at being aggressive on the bases. I'm going to double down on it is honestly my thought process with Sal Frelick. So just go for it.
I'm down. So looking at pitchers that can't regress, Michael just brought up a bunch of pitchers saying that Priester is the ace of this staff, which I think is a little bit of a hot take, but I understand where you're coming from. Woodruff is the consistent vet, and Mizorowski and Harrison will be our next top pitchers, with Chad Patrick and Henderson completing our top starters. He said Harrison's spin rate is unreal and Miz's fastball, oof. And that's the vision right there. That's what it is. I do think that the Brewers are going to stagger Woodruff and Mizorowski with Priester in between once the season's kind of kicked into gear, just because those two guys are high strikeout guys. So guys who could give you 7 innings of 10 strikeouts, or they could give you 5 innings of 12 strikeouts, and then you have to use your bullpen a little bit more. So I don't think those two are going to pitch back to back. I do think Priester or maybe Chad Patrick is going to separate those two, just so those two aren't pitching back to back with their high strikeout numbers. But who's a pitcher that you're looking at that can't regress in 2026?
Yeah, so I went with Abner Uribe on this one.
Oh.
Abner didn't have a ton of innings pitched in 2024, so his numbers there. He was wild and inconsistent with the fastball and the slider in 2024, but you saw the talent. I mean, even me and you were talking, we're just like, yo, this guy figures it out, dude. He's going to be a fucking problem, dude. In 2025, he absolutely was that. A 1.67 ERA. What's up, Connor? We can't wait either. We only have to wait until next Thursday, so we have back-to-back exciting Thursdays in the state of Wisconsin. So, hell
True.
yeah, dude. He had 90 strikeouts, 27 walks, a 194 opponent batting average. He had a 30% K rate and a 9% walk rate, so he was really, really good last year. Versus division, he was equally as good at 2.21 ERA, which really isn't bad when you're facing familiar opponents, people who have seen you a ton. A 195 opponent batting average versus opponents, 59 strikeouts, 36 hits, and 53 innings. So this is a guy that, you know, he's ticking up. So this is a guy that I think is very important. He might be the closer. You talked about it before with you don't care where he gets used, and this guy might play one of the more important positions on any baseball team and become the closer of this team. So he absolutely cannot regress. And also, I don't want him to regress because his celebrations are just Mama the Mia, dude.
So I went with actually 2 guys in the rotation. I went with Quinn Priester and Chad Patrick. They were both really good last year. Quinn Priester is going to be out until probably, quote, late April, his words. When he's back, I'd love to see him giving 6 and 7 innings, 3 or fewer runs. And I'd love to see Chad Patrick go a little bit deeper into games as well and kind of more firmly establish himself in the rotation. He was a rookie last year, so I think maybe his leash was a little bit shorter. But you mentioned Mizorowski being dominant in the playoffs. Chad Patrick,
bro,
that dude had some cojones in the playoffs too. That dude showed that he's got stuff that can stick. So I'm looking to see a little bit more from Chad Patrick this year.
Yeah, he went from a guy to a dude in the playoffs, man. Seriously.
Fair. All righty, let's talk a little bit more about the NL Central. So we're looking at the NL Central, kind of giving a reality check of who's dangerous, who's overrated, who's underrated. You know, some good, bad matchups, maybe some bad media narratives that are thrown out there. So, Jake, give me your thoughts on the NL Central as a whole on a reality check.
Yeah, so who's dangerous? Obviously, I've talked about this. I think it's the Cubs, and I wrote down that's unless the Reds start taking themselves seriously and get some pitching. So with that being said, I do have the Reds as a little bit underrated if they get some pitching. Could I say the Cubs are underrated? No. They spent all that money. Could I say the Pirates are underrated? No, because I wrote them as overrated. I've seen people
Interesting. All right.
I've seen people pick the Pirates for third place, and I'm like, why? This is the Pirates. You picked them in third place? They're the Pirates, dude. There's just things that just happen in life, okay? The Pirates are bad at baseball. The Jets suck at football. It is what it is, man. It's weird seeing the Hornets in the playoffs, and that's only because the play-in is a thing. The Hornets are bad at basketball. It's just a thing, bro. They are a little exciting, and I've gave them credit during this year, but they'll find a way to mess it up. They're the Hornets, dude. I'm sorry. That's just
to be fair. I think the Pirates could finish third in the division with 80 wins.
You know what? That's not that outrageous now that you say it, but I just feel like when I look at the division and I'm thinking about the teams and the rosters, I just feel like the Reds are better.
I can't wait to say what I have to say about the Reds.
I'm excited. Do you want me to go into good and bad matchups?
Just rip it all. Just rip it all.
Okay. So good and bad matchups. Good matchup. I wrote down the Pirates. The Brewers are 10-3 versus them last year, and we own their best player.
True. Valid.
I mean, I was like, when I was thinking about, I was like, dude, they have one guy who when they trot out every 5 days, they're just like, all right, we have a chance to win today. Yeah. And we just absolutely shit on him twice last year. So that was awesome. Bad, I have the Cubs. This is obviously a rivalry that has become more and more intense over the last 2 years.
Yep.
If you haven't been paying attention, it's become a thing. I like how we couldn't win manager of the year with Council all those years. And in the last 2 years, the guy who took over for him won manager of the year. That's just, good Lord, that is just poetic justice to me.
Great script writing.
Right. They also spent some money in the offseason. So the rivalry is back. Chicago versus the state of Wisconsin with the Brewers and the Packers. Like things are happening. Like this is a real rivalry. Giannis tried to mix into that with getting into it with Vooch when he did that windmill versus the Bulls a couple months ago. So Chicago versus Wisconsin is definitely back as a big time rivalry. So call out some lazy narratives. I have 2 things I want to talk about. Okay. So the first thing I wrote down is this is literally the first goddamn piece of notes I wrote down because I did not forget about it because it literally pissed me off. Why did Peralta start getting more love in 5 seconds as a Met than he ever got as a Brewer? I'm serious, dude. That pissed me off. That was the first thing I wrote down on my stuff. First thing I wrote down on my page. I was like, dude, that seriously annoyed the hell out of me, dude. That is so New York bias. It's ridiculous, dude. I can't handle that shit. It's annoying.
You know, I feel similarly just because I follow and I have notifications turned on for John Heyman just because he is a news-breaking guy. But when he's not breaking news, he's tweeting about the New York teams, and it's annoying as hell. So I feel you.
I was just like, dude, what? Like, Peralta was doing this the whole time, bro, and you didn't want to give him love. As soon as he's in New York, they put him in a top 10 list. I'm like, oh, my God, dude. I can't do this. Here's the next thing. Why, after everything we've shown over the last couple of years, we get rid of Burns, still good. Where Woody gets hurt, still good. In and out of the lineup with Yelich, still good. We get rid of Peralta, we're still going to be good. Why are they still predicting us at 83 wins? Like, they're not even giving us respect and being like, maybe 88. No, 83, bro. We won 97 freaking games last year, dude. What are we doing? I'm sorry, dude. Those 2 things are just like, oh,
perfect. Perfect.
Anyways, go ahead, buddy.
So I do have the Cubs as a dangerous team. They have good players. They have a good, not great coach and general manager. I do think their general manager is a little bit of their undoing at times. I'm super excited that they traded for Kyle Tucker last year and nothing happened because of it. Because now Cam Smith is on the Astros. He's an absolute monster, and I get to cheer for him to be good because I think the Cubs are going to regret that trade massively.
Yes.
The Reds, up to and including Elly De La Cruz, are overrated. The lazy media thing that I have written in is them constantly being put in the same class or above the Brewers for the last 2 or 3 years. I think it's disrespectful to the Brewers to put the Reds in the same conversation as them. Because not only do the Reds own the Brewers too, Christian Yelich specifically, that dude loves your ballpark. The Reds haven't won more than 83 games since 2013. Stop putting them close to the Brewers. That team's overrated as fuck, dude.
Holy shit, dude.
Elly De La Cruz, he's flashy. He hits home runs. He gets on base. He steals a ton of bases. Sometimes he might steal all 3. That dude also strikes out a lot, and he commits a shit ton of errors at shortstop. He is overrated. And this is separate. This is a bummer. Hunter Green is out until July. That's a bummer. He's a good pitcher. Like, you want good guys to be healthy because when the best players are playing, it's good for the league. Yeah. So, like, that's a bummer, but that's a factor. If the Brewers were going to be without Quinn Priester until July, like that would be a bummer. He's one of our best pitchers. Like,
Fair.
or Mizorowski's probably a little bit of a closer like 1-to-1 comparison. If we were going to be without Mizorowski until July because of an elbow injury, like that would be a bummer.
Yeah.
So that is a separate, it's not lazy media or somebody being overrated. That's a separate thing. But it's been 13 years since the Reds have won more than 83 games.
Damn, that's insane. I didn't know that. Wow.
That's why I was so excited to drop what I had to say about the Reds.
Wow.
And the Pirates. I literally wrote in my notes, kind of similar to what you were getting at, but I put, what a time to be alive. I think the Pirates are underrated. They have a lot of really good, really young players. Obviously, Paul Skeens, but also Bubba Chandler is a really good pitcher.
Yeah.
We kind of fell victim to Nick Gonzalez at times last year. The dude with the mustache, their second baseman. That dude can rake a little bit. It seemed like he wanted to bat 600 against the Brewers in the handful of games we saw. O'Neal Cruz is obviously good. I think he's potentially a little overrated, but I like him. So I think he's going to be kind of just properly rated where he is. And Brian Reynolds is an all-star. Like, Brian Reynolds is still on that team. He hasn't gone anywhere. And they have the number one prospect in baseball, Connor Griffin. I think we might see him this year at shortstop. So I think there's a potential where, like I said, I think the Pirates could win 80 games, and that ends up being third in the National League Central. Because, again, I have no respect for the Reds because they haven't done shit in over a decade.
That's fair. That's all fair, dude. It's all fair.
All right. All right. Let's jump into our record predictions and bold predictions.
Yes, sir. That one's tough.
That one's my favorite too. Yeah. All right, let's jump into some record predictions now. Fangraphs, like you said, has the Brewers projected for 82 wins. The PECOTA projections are the Brewers at 81. And annoyingly enough, the one team that does have the Brewers projected for a decent amount of wins is ESPN at 87.5. So we are really not happy with ESPN and the way that they're treating the state of Wisconsin, especially when it comes to basketball. But they gave the Brewers a little bit of respect when it comes to baseball. So, Jake, we always do 2 record predictions from the head and from the heart. So give me your Brewers record prediction from the head.
I went 90-72.
So close.
Oh, what do you got?
91-71. Oh.
I was
so close.
Okay. I was leave a slot for yours. All
right. So give me your record prediction from the head.
From the heart?
From the heart. That's the one.
I have 95-67.
Hey, me too.
Let's go.
Nicely
baby.
done. Nicely done.
Let's go. Nice.
All right. To round off this episode, we appreciate everybody for sticking around with us for almost an hour and a half. Milwaukee Brewers bold predictions. One thing we did bake in this year, just to kind of get away from this guy's going to hit 25 home runs and this guy's going to have, this many wins for the team. Jake predicted franchise records for like 3 years in a row, and then it happened. So I'm happy for you that you got that one to come true. Jake and I added our own quantum leap player this year, the way that Pat Murphy is. So one of our bold predictions is a quantum leap. So Jake, hit me with your quantum leap player.
You're going to love this, dude. Jackson Chourio.
Nice. I do like it.
Hell yeah, dude.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'll take the over. I will too.
Michael said I'll take the over. Hey, I like it. Again, you're not going to catch us being like, oh no, you're betting on the Brewers? What are you doing? Like, my quantum leap player is the guy that I've been a fan of for like 3 years now. It's Tyler Black.
Oh.
He had a 6 RBI spring training game where he almost hit for the cycle. And I've been fairly critical of Jake Bauers over the last year-ish because, yes, he hits home runs, which is cool, and he hits multiple home runs against the Pirates, which makes his numbers look good. But that dude strikes out in clutch situations too much for my liking. So I'd like to see Tyler Black take Jake Bauers' job as the backup first baseman just to be a more reliable hitter at the plate overall, knowing that he's not going to have the power that Bauers has.
You would take a Tyler over a Jake.
Gotcha.
That's fair.
All right. Hit me with your second bold prediction.
All right. My second one is Terang established himself as a power hitter. I didn't put a number in there because we're not doing that this year. And the Brewers lock him up after the season.
I like it.
I know that that's not like super crazy, but it is a little crazy that the Brewers would actually lock somebody up after the season.
True. Yeah, not before they make their debut.
Exactly.
All right. My second one is that we will see 10 major league debuts this season.
Oh,
last year the Brewers had 7. So
dude, that would be, oh my God.
Dude. I have a bunch of names we're going to run through as potential guys who could debut. Now, some of these names aren't like sexy, top prospect names. Some of them are guys who have just been in AAA. But Jet Williams is number 1. I have Coleman Crowe. I have Blake Burke, Brock Wilken, Wes Clark, Tate Kaner, Jefferson Cuero, maybe Andrew Fisher, Shane Drowan, Cooper Pratt, Freddie Zamora, Eddie Leonard, Shane Drowan. I have on there twice for some reason. But those are all guys who could make their major league debuts this season. I'm looking at 10 major league debuts for the Brewers this year.
I like
all
that.
Right. Hit me with your third bold prediction.
The Brewers will have 3 starters with at least 14 wins.
Ooh, okay. I like
Woody,
it.
Mizorowski, and Priester are the obvious choices. Now, this will be a little bit tougher for Priester, but he went on a run last year where he won like
12 in a row.
Yeah, and the Brewers won like what was it, 16 straight that he started. He just didn't
it was a crazy amount.
That was nuts. So 3 starters with 14 wins would be nuts.
All right, so you have a 14. I have a 13 as my third bold prediction. And that's that the Brewers will finish with a better record than 13 teams who spent more money than they did.
Oh, dude, nicely done. Fucking nicely done, dude. Nice.
So the New York Mets, yes, the Brewers will finish with more wins than the Mets, the Red Sox, the Braves, the Cubs, the Astros, the Orioles, the Rangers, the Angels, the Royals, the Reds, the Athletics, the Diamondbacks, and the Giants.
Nicely done. I like that. That last one was a bomb. That was nice. From deep.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around, for listening to us talk for an hour and 27 about the Milwaukee Brewers. We appreciate the comments along as well. Yeah. Listen to this 5 times before the season starts to get you ready. During the entire season, Jake and I are going to be here. We will recap games every single Wednesday. I'll have every single game recapped for you. So if you want to get some recaps over the week, if you missed a game, if you just want to hear a little bit more deep dive stuff, then you get on the broadcast, or then you want to read on Twitter or whatever. Tune in to us during the season. We're also going to bake in some minor league coverage to go with it to give kind of a more organizational overview during the season. So again, stick with us every Wednesday. We're going to recap all the games, and tune in during the season. Thanks for tuning into our primer, and we are ready for baseball season.
Hell yeah, man.